Hey guys, Matt Allen here. Welcome back to Tactical Bassin. Today, we're talking about where bass go during the fall transition, as well as the baits that we use to catch those fish. The fall transition is such an important part of bass fishing each year. And out of all the transitions through the seasons, it is the one that is most commonly missed. People don't even know that it's happening. A lot of anglers begin to struggle towards the end of summer and they have no idea why. All they know is that their fishing is falling apart. It doesn't have to be that way. The fall transition can be incredible. On some lakes, it takes a little bit of time to get going. On other lakes, right out the gate, the bite is unbelievable, and the vast majority of anglers aren't even part of it. They're missing it completely because it sneaks up on you. So here's the deal. In most of the country, in the last couple of weeks, the transition has already begun. Here's how you'll know if it started where you live. If your nighttime temperatures have begun to drop lower than they were last month, it's already started and you probably don't even know it. What's so misleading about the fall transition is that the daytime temperatures can remain the exact same. They can even go up. But if the nighttime temperatures start to dip at all, where you live and where you fish, the fish begin to transition to fall right away. Now, what does that mean? It means that they're repositioning. As we head into fall is a major feeding time for bass. They get aggressive and they eat because they know that winter is coming. But the process of getting there involves some big steps and some big moves. So depending on the type of fishery you're on, the fish will make some different moves. Now, the biggest thing again is to realize that it's even happening. And I'm telling you, the vast majority of people, maybe you included, are realizing right now, oh shoot, the fishing I've been doing, it's sort of been dwindling on me. It wasn't as fun as it was 4 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago. I feel like I'm catching less fish. I'm doing the same thing. I don't know what's going on. The transition has begun. I'm gonna get you up to speed right now. So depending on the type of lake that you're on, where these fish will go and how they feed varies. If you're on a reservoir, that's where we start seeing major changes, okay? If you're on a lowland reservoir, actually I'm gonna lump a lowland reservoir and a natural lake together for this one. Here's what we're gonna say. If you are on a lake that has a lot of grass in it, it is an overnight change. The second those nighttime temps start to dip, the grass starts to not flourish as well. When you have those warm nights, grass is doing great. As soon as you start to see the dip, it's not that it like magically dies and all the grass is gone tomorrow. It's not like that at all. It just stops flourishing. And when it's not flourishing, it's not producing as much oxygen and the fish are bailing out of that grass just as fast as they can go. So if you are on a fishery that has grass, the first thing you want to do, maybe you were on a frog bite during the summer, maybe you were on a flip bite, maybe you were fishing outside grass edges with a jig or a worm. Maybe you weren't fishing it at all because it was overwhelming. You see those fields of grass, you see cheese mats, maybe it's subsurface, but you know there's just too much grass to fish. This is the time of year where fish start bailing out of that grass as fast as they can go. They're looking for one of two things. So if you're on a grass fishery, here's what you're looking for during the fall transition. One, the little bit of grass that's still doing well. Maybe it's a different species of grass. Maybe it's at a different depth, but you'll notice you pull into one pocket and all of a sudden the grass still looks good. Fish will get in that grass. But number two is hard structure or hard cover next to where that grass is going to start receding. So there might be a giant cheese flat. You know, I picture like a Lake Gunnersville where there's grass for days out there when it's flourishing. Those fish, as soon as there starts to be a problem, they're gonna bail out. They're gonna get on the nearest hard transition, or they'll run and get on stumps. They'll get on laid down wood. They'll get on the nearest rock. They're pulling to the nearest hard cover or hard structure that they can get to. That's where they're going to set up. So what did take you all day to flip and frog and work your way through, you can now fish in a matter of minutes by just jumping between the pieces of hard cover that are around that area. Again, once that grass isn't flourishing, the fish want out. Now, if you're on a lake that doesn't have so much grass, what's going to happen with your fish? Well, to be honest, the main driver is that bass are going to start transitioning to chasing bait fish really aggressively. And this will get more and more and more as we go into fall, okay? But the idea is that the fish will start pulling out and chasing that bait, and wherever that bait ends up, the bass end up. It can happen deep, and it can happen really, really shallow, but the bass are going to start corralling bait fish. That might be shad, or shiners, or little silver sides, all sorts of different minnows, little herring, right? All these different species, but what it boils down to is the bass want to eat. And they're going to start working as a group. The bass will start gathering in likely places, and then as a group, they will hunt. A school of bass will hunt bait fish, and they corral them as a team. It's fascinating when you run into it and really see it happening. Now, again, where that happens, it can be out deep, it can be shallow, but if you're just looking where those fish are beginning to pile up, and this process will begin starting, because that's really what happens during the transition, I'm gonna start checking main lake points, big main lake points, okay? Take the map of your lake, the big main lake points. Start there. The second place I check is the exact opposite. I check backs of coves, but not just any cove. Okay, what I'm gonna check to start with is the back of the biggest coves on the lake. Because the largest cove on the lake, as bass are starting to push back into these coves, it takes time. They start gathering bait fish, the bait fish end up there. This process doesn't happen overnight. So the largest coves will end up with a group of fish soonest. So that's how I can check that the pattern is happening. So I'll run the backs of the largest coves on the lake. And what I do is I go right up the center of it with my boat, okay? If you don't have electronics of any kind, what you do is you run to the very back of the biggest coves and you start fishing blind. Start fishing your way out. If you run into fish, if you start catching fish, notice how far you were from the back of the cove. Go check the next one, the next one, the next one. That's all you have to do. If you've got electronics, you can set down in the middle of the cove, depending on the lake. Some lakes are much shallower than others, but a typical, highland reservoir, I'm typically going to shut down in 40 to 60 feet of water and then work my way into the back of a cove. That's usually, in the scenario I have in my head, maybe a quarter to an eighth of a mile from the back of a cove is where I want to start looking. Now, obviously, if your lake's not that deep, start a lot farther back, but that eighth to a quarter mile out is where I'm looking. And the reason why is that the fish will tend to collect in that deeper water. My theory has always been that they sort of let the bait fish into the cove, right? Bait fish are naturally cruising around everywhere. The bass don't really seem to interrupt them. But once they get past them, it's like gatekeepers, right? Like the wall goes up, bait fish are no longer allowed back out. If you've got modern electronics, if you've got forward-facing sonar, obviously you can save a lot of time scanning, looking for those fish suspended out in open water. But you can catch these fish with no electronics at all, just blind fishing by fishing that same section in the back of each cove. So first was out on the ends of the biggest points. Second, we're going way into the backs. Third is going to be anywhere where there's a pinch point, a narrowing in the lake. So if you've got big arms coming in, you've got 2 points that come from opposing sides, and it's narrower there than what's on either side, that's a pinch point in the lake. Pinch points can be excellent. You can catch them right up on the points. You can also catch them suspended in the middle. It totally depends. But keep in mind that no matter what kind of fishery you're on, if you're on a pond, same thing applies. If there's grass, start checking the hard cover around it. If there's not grass, don't worry about it. Go check those main lake structures. Fish your little points. Fish your little pockets. Find the fish. They do the same thing. Maybe not in the same numbers. It depends on the size of the pond, how many bass are in there. but they do the same thing. And then river fish, they start putting the feed bag on. I mean, this is the time of year where they just start kicking it up a notch. They are feeding. They're on current seams. I find a lot of times that they'll be up at the tops of holes, right at the base of riffles. Like the riffle comes down and then it hits the pool. They'll be right up at the edge of that riffle looking for food. Most often they'll be on the first piece of cover closest to the fast water at the head of every hole. That's the #1 place that I catch them this time of year in a river. Those fish want to eat. Such a fun time to be on the water. No matter where you are, this is a very important time. And here's the most important detail I want you to understand. I said in the beginning that some fisheries transition really quick and it's wide open right out the gate. Others, this process takes time and you actually have to work a little bit. There'll be a couple of weeks where you kind of grind it out trying to find them. Regardless of which lake you're on, this is a critical time to be on the water, because what happens is these fish, as they set up, this sticks going into the fall and ultimately going into the winter. If you can find the fish and you can travel with them, you can follow this transition, you can see where they're corralling bait, you're going to have fish all the way through the fall. But if you lose them now, and you lose them completely, you just keep doing your summer thing, it's not working as well as it was, you don't know where the fish have gone, but hey, you're still catching a few. By the time your few go to 0, you don't even have a clue on the lake where your fish might have gone. And you're way behind as we go into fall when that bite is wide open. And you are the guy left scratching your head, trying to figure out where these fish went, where they set up, how you lost them, right? So that's sort of in a nutshell, 1, why it's important, and 2, where I would start the search on various types of lakes. I laid out a bunch of baits here. I'm gonna run through them really quickly. I'll link all of these baits in the video description, okay? I'll give you the exact color, the exact size. If there's a trailer, the exact trailer. Tim and I's favorite colors for the trailers as well. Almost everything here is a moving bait with one exception. You're going to see a couple of themes. A lot of moving baits, a lot of flash, a lot of vibration. That's what the fall transition into fall is all about for me. You're also going to see a second theme here, which is that none of these are really mainstream baits all through the year. I mean, some of them are, I guess they are mainstream baits, but they're not baits that people have necessarily been throwing all summer long. There's a reason for that. This time of year, fish have been wailed on, right? They've been getting hammered, depending on where you are in the country, since about February. People have been serious about catching those fish. If you're in the deep south, it never stops. These fish have seen it all, heard it all, felt it all, bit too many of it. They're cautious this time of year. So we go different, we go smaller, we go flash, we go vibration. There's a few different themes here, but those are the things that help us to fool some of the wariest fish of the year, because the giants get involved in this. If you can figure it out, you can catch monsters going through the transition, but you've got to be doing something different than everybody else. Now, out of all these baits, there's only one that is not a moving bait, and that's the jig. This is a 1/2 ounce pitch and jig. Dirty Jig's pitch and jig, the go-to is what the color's called. If I could only have one jig, this is it. On the back of that, we've got that X-Zone craw on there. That is such a good jig. Now, here's the deal. If you are on a fishery that has grass, that's where this comes into play. It's my one bait that's not a moving bait. When that grass is dying back, fish are going to hard cover, it's my favorite time of year to go throw a jig at them. Now, I have a lot of times that I like throwing a jig. So what makes this so special? This is the time of year where, I said it earlier, it would have taken me all day or days to fish these big grass flats. Now I can come along the edge of a grass flat where that grass is starting to fade, and I look up towards the bank and I see a lay down here. I see a lay down way down there. Running here with my boat, flip, flip, flip with the jig, go to the next one, flip, 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 and I'm gone. I'm fishing vast areas very fast because a lot of those fish will pull to that hard cover. So it's one of the times of year where that jig is such a major deal, and it makes it so fun because I know that I'm fishing for more fish than should be there. At other times of year, a good laydown has a fish or 2 or 3 in it. But if all the grass around it dies, you might have 20 fish from all that grass suck into the same tree. And now I pull up there with a jig and I'm flipping into a school of fish. It's really fun. Now let's talk about deep fish, because this, again, it can happen deep, it can happen shallow. When we're talking deep, I'm using less baits. There's basically 2 main things I'm throwing. The first is a deep crank. This from Rapala, that's a DT16. This from River to Sea, that's the Tactical DD75. That's the bait that Tim and I designed for speed cranking. We designed it for this time of year, headed into winter. This is an amazing bait. So is that DT. These baits both represent something that is more subtle, more natural than what they've been seeing all summer. You're not seeing chartreuse and blue here. You're not seeing bright purple. You're not seeing sexy shad, right? Natural colors, tighter vibrations, natural cranks. We'll get a lot of bites this time of year in speed cranking. Burn, 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 pause. Burn, 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 pause. Burn, pause. That bite is back. I love that bite, and it's here. Next up, for fishing deep, is the jigging spoon. Look out, one of the most overlooked baits in bass fishing, one of the most misunderstood baits in bass fishing. This is the Duh Spoon by Nichols. So the biggest thing with a spoon that I think people misunderstand is weight versus size. Okay, so what do we do with the spoon? Throw it out and it'll flutter to bottom. And then once it hits bottom, we pop it up, we let it flutter again. Pop it up, let it flutter again. Fish are so smart sometimes. We're so dialed into like the color of the flake in our worm on our drop shot. And then you come along with this big hunk of metal and they eat it too. It's crazy. But I'm telling you, this is the time of year, the next 2 to 3 months, where a jigging spoon is an incredible bite. It's one of my favorite things to do. What we do with these spoons, again, throw them out semi-tight, get them down low, and then you leave it slack. It's got to have room to get its natural fall. If you keep a tight line to it, it falls like a pencil. No action. You need to give it slack so it can fall. That motion triggers a feed response in bass. They lash out, they attack it in a big way. That is such a fun way to catch them. Now, where I think people go wrong is they often throw too small of a spoon because they see the weights when they go to buy them. See this little guy? That's a 3/4 ounce spoon. Look how small it is compared to, say, a jig, okay? 3/4 ounce jig, or 3/4 ounce spoon, 1/2 ounce jig. Now look when I turn it this way. See how tiny that 3/4 ounce spoon is? This is a 1 3/4 ounce spoon. It's tiny, tiny. So people get caught up when they see the size, the weight listed online, and they buy too small of a spoon. The 3/4 and the 1 3/4 are my primary sizes that I fish in the spoon. Be aggressive with them. Let them fall, hop, hop, fall, hop, hop, fall, hop, hop. Tim and I every year crush them on the spoon. It is such a fun pattern. We catch them all over the place. It's best on highland reservoirs, just for whatever reason. We smash them in that environment, but lowland reservoirs can be amazing too. It's such a fun way to fish. Now, let's start talking about shallower baits, okay? The biggest key, again, that you're going to see in these first few is flash. A lot of vibration, a lot of flash, a lot of movement. We're trying to get fish to respond. First one up is a chatterbait, and these are in no particular order. Now the chatterbait, everybody's familiar with a chatterbait, a bladed jig, right? Got 2 options here. You'll notice how tiny the blades are on both of these. This is the Baby Jack, and this is the Evo Elite Mini Max. Way downsized blades compared to the normal chatterbait. Downsized profiles, downsized hooks, downsized trailers. Again, these fish have been seeing baits since spring. You've got to present something different to them. By going to these downsized presentations, I can fool those wary fish that don't want to eat a full-size profile. In addition to that, the shad spawned back in late spring. In much of the country, that happens late April through mid-May. Those shad are now growing up, but they're not full size. They're juvenile shad. So a lot of the bait fish that bass are eating around the country are downsized, and this is the appropriate size to throw to match them. A couple of trailers just as an example for you to pair up to them. From Z-Man, we've got the chatter shad. The chatter shad comes in two sizes. This is the smaller one. It's the 3.5. Look how well that 3.5 pairs up on the back of that baby jacket. It gives a true shad profile, flat tail back there, kicking and vibrating. If I want a profile, that's the trailer that I'm throwing. Now, if I want to get aggressive with it, rip it, pop it, work it, snap, right? Working that rod, popping that reel to draw a reaction bite from the fish, then I want more of a pintail style. Hog Farmer makes the spunk shad. Unbelievable chatterbait trailer. They also make a bait called the stroll shad, which is for strolling. But the 4-inch size of the stroll shad is actually amazing on the back of these downsized chatterbaits. The 4-inch stroll shad instead of the spunk shad for pairing up to those little guys and getting tons of tail movement where we're working that rod and we're getting that thing to dance and move and work. So we've got a trailer where we want that true profile, and we've got a trailer where we're trying to get really aggressive with the bait and force the fish to eat it. Next one up is going to be that truly downsized category. To me, that's a BFS category. To the next person, that might be a ultralight spinning rod category, but a couple of different baits in that category for you. First one is that Megabass Karashi, which needs no explanation. One of the hottest baits on the planet. This little bait, we have dedicated videos just to how to fish this. In fact, if there's room, I'll link that in the video description before we even start linking baits, because you need to understand how to fish a Karashi. It's small, but the fish response to this thing is out of this world. I've never seen another bait that fish will attack and miss and spin around, eat it again, spin around, eat it again until they get it. It's incredible. If you've got fish that are tough to catch and they're shallower than, let's say, about 8 foot of water, the Karashi is incredible for converting those fish. Second one up is the spy bait. We can take a spy bait. If we're throwing on spinning, I'll usually throw the 80 size. If I want to downsize it, I usually go to Bait Finesse, throw the 70 size. But fire that spy bait and just steady reel. It is a subtle bait. The body rocks while the blades are spinning front and back. To your eye, it's not doing much in the water. The fish come unglued for it. Again, it's a combination of flash and vibration that gets these fish to react. And then the last one, this is the smallest glide bait I'm aware of on the planet. From Bait Sanity, that is their little 2-inch BFS glide. That little bait smashes. If the fish are getting tough in your fishery, but you can see them chasing bait fish, because this is the time of year where sometimes, it depends on the lake, sometimes they're chasing big gizzard shad. Other lakes, they're chasing that tiny bait. And the smaller the bait fish, the harder they are to imitate and the harder it is to fool the fish. This little bait, for me, this transition the last few weeks, I've been smashing fish on this little 2-inch glide. There's actually two versions. This is the little glide bait, and then there's also one with a little lip on it it'll crank. And I've crushed them on both. But this little glide is unbelievable. You can throw it again on your lightest Bait Finesse setup, or you can throw it on ultralight spinning. But the fish just lose their minds over these downsized profiles. From there, the next one is an underspin. The underspin speaks for itself, right? We know these fish are chasing bait fish. We give them a swim bait profile. That's the Mayor. The Mayor does an awesome job of, one, being a downsized profile, but two, still giving a very heavy vibration. It's a very shad-like profile and movement, and it makes a big difference. So that guy combined with that blade makes all the difference. This is from Dirty Jigs. This is our tactical mini underspin that Tim and I designed along with Dirty Jigs to solve a lot of the problems with downsized underspins that were on the market. We resolved a lot of things. Very specific dropper length arm, so it'll clear all of your major swim baits. See, that blade can still spin underneath it without being sucked up against it. That's because we set that arm length exact. Heavy wire, but very light wire. I'm sorry, a heavy wire, but very small size hook. So it's a heavy 1/0 in there so that you can take that thing and you can fish it on 6 or 7 pound, but you can also fish it on 10 or 12 pound and you're not going to bend it out. Just the underspin is an amazing way to catch fish because anytime bass are targeting bait fish and you can add a blade to the mix, you just capture their attention better. You go from being one of the thousands of baits to the one that stands out from the crowd. It's really that simple. That's why an underspin works so well this time of year. Next up is the topwater. Very simple here. We want to be different. This is the Megabass Giant Dog X. No surprise there. We talk about this bait a lot. It's a very subtle topwater. What you see behind me is perfect Giant Dog X conditions. Glassy, still, quiet water. That's when they crush it. From Duo Realis, we have the Pencil, which is one of the loudest topwaters there is, unless you get this one, the Silent. The Silent, last fall, right as the transition started, I went on a tear with that Silent 110 Pencil. I worked them over with this bait because, again, they've seen it all. They've heard topwaters, they've tracked them, they've blown up on some of them. They don't want to do it anymore. But you come along with one that's more subtle, one that's completely silent, they're on it. Next up is the square bill. Now this is very specific. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of square bill crankbaits that run in the 3 to 5 foot depth range. There are almost none that run in less than 1.5 to 2 feet of water. And this time of year, especially over the next month or so, the bass that get bait fish corralled in the pockets, they'll push them shallower and shallower and shallower and shallower. If you're on a natural lake or you're on a lowland reservoir where there's not a huge drawdown, on lakes that have big drawdowns, they tend to not go quite as shallow. They'll stay out deeper and corral them. On lakes where it's very stable water depth, they'll push those bait dirt shallow, and that's where they eat them. It's really important that you have a crank that can run in those depths without hitting bottom, because if you're hitting bottom in the fall, you're typically picking up the decomposing grass and leaves and junk, and as soon as you do that, your cast is blown. So baits that can stay just above all that junk and look good, smash them. From Demiki, we have the BTC 50. This is a very subtle bait. The BTC 50 fishes in that sub 1.5 feet, and it has some really unique colors. And I'll say, there are some baits that I see, like Tackle Warehouse as an example. When I get on Tackle Warehouse, some baits look great in the pictures online. Others look terrible. I buy them anyway, and when I get them, I'm like, man, that looks way better. The Demiki is one of those. So like this color, when you see it in a TW picture, because there's a light shining through it, all of this like reflective coating that's on it doesn't show. So they just look basically clear. When you get them in hand, they have all sorts of flash and subtle detail going on that you can't see in the pictures. That BTC 50 crushes fish. It's also got full-size hooks, which is hard to find in a really small crankbait. A lot of the stuff that will run dirt shallow is like micro cranks, right? With micro little hooks. You get into big fish, 5 to 8 pounders in shallow water, you're toast on those micro hooks. That BTC 50, straight out of the package, we've got good hardware on there, large hardware that can actually fight big fish, and you can do battle in the shallows. Next one up, from Megabass, this came out this year. This is called the Blowly. The Blowly is a really interesting bait. You can run it crazy shallow. Megabass colors, those speak for themselves. This bait has a very like aggressive kick to it, but it also will not blow out. It's got one other thing going on for it that I notice, and that's when I play like the stop and go game. When I stop, it has this like little body wobble to it as it settles. That secondary action is a major deal. So I burn, burn, pause, burn, pause. Every time I pause, not only does it pause, but then it does this little I'm alive body rock thing. This bait has this hole in the head where water goes in and it comes out the gill plates. And that helps create that stability where this bait can track super shallow. So I read sort of some of the specs behind it because I played with it first. And then I'm like, why does it have a hole in its head? What they said is that the water going through sort of combats against that bill pushing, which helps it stay shallower. So one, it doesn't want to blow out because it's got water going through it, not just around it. And two, it runs really shallow. If you high stick this thing, you can run it in like 8 to 10 inches of water. If you fish it normal, foot, foot and a half, no problem. Baits like these two are very, very hard to find and should absolutely be in your fall lineup if you fish shallow water at all. Next one up is a jerkbait. I won't go into a ton of detail here because I'm sure that we'll spend a lot of time this fall talking jerkbaits. So don't worry about that. A lot more coming on that. But a bait like a Megabass Vision 110 on the hard bait side, or a bait like this X-Zone Whiplash Shad on the soft bait side. Again, if you've got a lot of grass, you're gonna wanna be weedless. If you're in more of a highland reservoir type situation, you're gonna want those treble hooks. Either one can work, but the jerkbait, the combination of how those baits move and dart, they elicit a feed response that is very different than most baits. There's very few baits. Speed cranking is one of the baits that can get that kind of a response. A jerkbait can get that kind of a response. Sometimes a blade bait or a lipless can get that kind of a response, but there's very few baits on the market that can do it. And then last but certainly not least is strolling. And strolling applies the jig and minnow, strolling, mid-strolling, the Demiki rig, the original name, whatever you want to call it. You can do this with all the modern electronics in the world, and you can do it with none of the modern electronics. You can do it completely blind from shore in a pond, and you will be equally successful. What you've got here are baits that normally we would be throwing a little swim bait. Let me cover the blade. So now pretend it's not a tailspin or an underspin, it's just the swim bait, okay? We've got our underspin here, but there's our swim bait. Normally you would throw this out, reel it back, that tail's back there kicking. We've got our little Finesse swim bait. Think of these as the exact same concept, only instead of tail kick, we shake the rod while we reel, and it creates body roll. So instead of tail kick, we have body roll. The result is the same. The difference is that far fewer fish have seen them. Fish are falling for this every day all around the country. It's incredible how well strolling, these little minnow baits, can work. Here are two baits that your fish are less likely to have seen because there are tons of people throwing minnows right now. Fish are getting conditioned, and again, being different, being finessey is the theme here. From Hog Farmer, we have the 5-inch Stroll Shad. We just talked about the 4-inch on the back of that chatterbait. The 5-inch Stroll Shad is one of the best rolling baits that I have found on the market. It's incredible how well fish respond to that bait. I catch so many giants on it. The second one is from Demiki, and this is called the Fat Armor Shad. Notice this deep belly. This bait is very different profile-wise than almost all of the other minnow baits that I've seen. That fatter belly, one, gives us a great imitation of a shad, right? Like a true shad profile. A threadfin shad is not some skinny little minnow. They're a flat-bellied, or I'm sorry, big-bellied, flat-sided minnow. So it's a true shad profile. We still get a ton of great rock out of this bait. This bait has been one of my secret weapons this summer into the fall transition. When my fish had seen everything, because everyone's throwing a minnow and it was getting really hard to get fish to respond. If I was using my electronics, I'd see those followers, they wouldn't commit. If I was fishing blind, I'd be in areas where I felt like I should get bit, it just wasn't happening. I switched to a bait that they obviously had not seen based on their reaction, because I went from not getting bit to these fish coming unglued when I went to that fat armor shad. And it was just such a fresh reminder that when you pick up a bait that they're not seeing on every boat all day long, it's like they've never seen it. And they let loose on it like it's that very first time they saw a minnow. So those are two profiles. We're fishing in a category that almost everybody's doing, but we're throwing a couple of profiles that they're not seeing, and it is a serious difference maker. Guys, fall transition again is an amazing time to be on the water. It can require some work because our fish are shifting and we need to shift with them. But understand that that work you're paying right now will benefit you all fall into the winter, and it's absolutely worth doing. Get out there, apply some of these baits. You don't need all of them. Hopefully you listen to the types of places based on the different lakes, and there were a couple of things there that sounded like they might apply to you. Just apply those to your lake, and that little change might be all you need this transition to get right back on those fish. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you soon.